So welcome to this video, everybody. In this one I want to talk everything shipping, so the shipping delays, the increases in prices, how much of the increase, how long are the delays, why is it being caused, how long is it going to last, all of these topics that I know a lot of you are very interested in. Whether you're a new seller or a long time seller, they're going to affect everybody, and not just in this industry, in every industry that imports goods from China specifically. And I thought, who really better to discuss this topic than the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ryan Clark, the co-owner of Westbound Logistics. So we got together on around a 1 hour Zoom call. You can listen to it like a podcast here, you need to watch the video itself. And we discussed all of these things, kind of like a Q&A style, where he answered all the questions himself to give you an insight into what's happening, into why it's happening, and how long it may last. So I hope you enjoy it, guys. And to be honest, Ryan Clark, top bloke, 100% recommend himself and Westbound Logistics. If you want to contact them at any point, it's amazon@westboundglobal.com. I'll have that in the title and the description, anything like that, depending on where this video is posted. Without any further ado, I don't want to hold you anymore. I hope you enjoy the interview. So just a quick video here with Ryan Clark from Westbound Logistics. Ryan, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself and introduce Westbound Logistics, and I'm sure everyone already knows who you are. I think it's probably safe to say you're probably one of the biggest shippers and freight forwarders for Amazon FBA sellers now over the past couple of years in the UK. So yeah, if you just want to give a little introduction to you and your business and how things have been going.
Yeah, as you say, Ryan, most people would probably come across the name already. We certainly feel like we're doing a lot with you guys, with Amazon sellers, new and existing ones as well. I'm one of the owners of Westbound Logistics. We started in 2009. Although, as my hairstyle will give away, I've been in the industry quite a long time, about 25 years to be precise. Myself and Danny are business owners. We've got 24 staff here in the UK now. We're based in Essex. About 4.5 to 5 years ago, early 2016, we started in China as well. So we're kind of a rare breed of a privately owned company that expands out and gets our own offices in China. So that's not normally the done thing in our world.
Definitely.
We operate our own services by LCL, which some of you would be familiar with by now.
I'm sure most people watching this will be quite familiar with that, familiar with your team. I'm sure they only have good things to say about that from what I've seen from posting the group and what people have said to me in the past, that most experience of Westbound, 99%, it's all been positive. And the amount of recommendations you get in the group and YouTube, and when everyone looks for a freight forwarder, the amount of times your name comes up, it is great to see.
Yeah, it's good to see for us as well, because obviously it means if someone feels the need to recommend us, then we're doing our job right, and that's helping people ultimately.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll get stuck straight into the questions, because I know there's been a lot of changes recently with obviously the whole COVID situation, the delays, Christmas coming out, it's all kind of compounded into one kind of massive mess. So first question I have for you on kind of, I guess, as far back as March and things like that, is how have things changed since March? From March to now, how things have changed in shipping and prices, how much of a change that made to the business and kind of your side of things?
Huge changes. It's phenomenal. Devastating to some people as well. It's been so tough. These are, I touched on just on our intro there. I've been in this industry for 25 years, yeah. and what we've seen, obviously in our lifetime, we've never seen a pandemic, yeah. But what we've seen the effect of that in logistics, I've never seen shipping rates go this high. I've never seen vessel capacity being so low. I've never seen a shortage of container equipment being this bad. Yeah. I've never seen port congestion this bad. It's a mess. Yeah, it's a real mess.
We'll touch on those points a bit more in these future questions, but again, just even from like my side looking in from the out, and I'm sure I don't even know half the stuff that you know on the issues that have arisen and how many problems that caused, but just from outside looking in, seeing the posts in the group and seeing, especially your post, I know you posted on your profile about issues you're having with certain clients, and just kind of the communication barrier that people aren't understanding that it's an industry-wide issue and not a Westbound specific issue. When there's delays, when there's price increases, it's not you guys actively increasing your prices to try and make more money or delaying the ships on purpose to try and cause issues. It's almost completely out of your control, the things that are happening.
That's one of our biggest challenges,
Yeah.
is actually trying to get the point across that it's actually not us as the freight forwarder. It's not just about Westbound.
Yeah.
Every freight forwarder, even our rivals as well, everyone is having such a tough time explaining why has the rate gone up so much, and then why can't I have my delivery as quick as I normally get it, and these kind of ongoing questions and answer sessions that we're having with every individual customer is really taking its toll. But hopefully this video helps.
Yeah, well, that's what it's meant to be. It's hopefully meant to be an educational resource that when people are having these issues, they can look at this video and kind of understand a bit more background behind why that's happening and why they might be in the situation they are. So I'm just going to look at my phone because I don't want to go too off topic, because I know we're just going on a massive tangent and miss loads of things that and questions people wanted to ask. So in terms of causes, what would you say has been the biggest causes of the delays and price increases so far?
Demand. So the easiest way to explain it, and again, you'll have to stop me if I start going on a tangent. If you cast your mind back to March, when we ourselves and the rest of the world went onto lockdown, let's liken the situation to toilet roll. We're all familiar with what happened there. If you walked into the supermarket and you saw 5 big packs of toilet roll left on the shelf, and the price from day one, back in February, was £3 a family pack size. If they're now £4, it wasn't about the price. Everyone cleared the shelves, and then it's empty. So then if you go back the next day, and if that same toilet roll is £5 or £6, you're still going to buy it, and the shelves are literally being cleared. And that's what's happened with the containerized freight industry, because you've got the tap has turned off when the world comes to a halt for shipping. Vessels got put into dry dock. The port workers were reduced because there wasn't much moving whilst the world was on lockdown again. So when that came back and the tap literally got turned on, everyone wanted their freight straight away. There wasn't enough infrastructure to cope with it. There wasn't enough staff. There wasn't empty containers in the right place at the right time, and there wasn't enough vessels to cope for that sudden surge of bookings. So what the shipping lines do is so what the shipping lines have done is when there's a demand and you've got 100% capacity, which then looks like 150% of bookings, they're going to put the price up. And that hasn't stopped.
Well, it's still, that's continuing to happen now. Then I know that Westbound send kind of the weekly or monthly updates on the kind of the pricing structure and the how the prices are changing. And I can see they're constantly going up. And I think I got an email recently from you saying that you might not actually be doing those emails anymore because the prices are changing so incredibly fast. You can't keep up with how fast the prices are changing because of the demand still being so high.
No, so that was for full load containers for December. So we're still pricing the LCL because we kind of take the rough with the smooth as much as we can on that. We buy the container. It's our job to fill it, and we know roughly what our set price is going to be. We win some, we lose some. But on a full load, we can't afford to do that. The variation is so crazy. For the first time ever, we've not issued full load rates for December because every single booking has to be quoted, because it ranges. You can have a container from Shanghai today, and you can have a Shanghai container from another customer that's going to pay $500-600 different to the other one, and there's no set reason for it. It's just because of what's available at that moment in time.
Okay, so again, I'll just go on to the next question to make sure that we kind of stick on track. So, how these delays affected every freight forwarding company, including when shipping from suppliers themselves? So basically, I guess these are questions that most of the other people have answered. So I'll try and put them into more of a kind of question standpoint. So basically, is everyone affected equally during this? Everyone in the industry, whether you're shipping with your supplier or Westbound or another FBA freight forwarding company, everyone's affected the same by these delays. And it's not just Westbound that if you get a quote from Westbound, you can't then just go to someone else and expect a much cheaper quote because everyone's affected by this situation. It's not just yourselves.
everyone is affected. Yeah. Every freight forwarder, even the airlines and the shipping lines themselves, although the shipping lines themselves are making a lot of money at the moment.
Yeah.
They have been affected because it's an onward chain, it's an onward knock-on effect. Because you get port congestion like we've seen in Felixstowe, that then affects the decisions from the shipping line to say, well, we can't afford to spend 3-4 days at anchor outside of Felixstowe, losing money when we could be working and calling to other ports. They'll divert that container vessel somewhere else, which we've seen. That then affects us as a forwarder. That then affects our customers that we've got on board, and it's just one huge chain reaction of unhappy people.
Things about that diversion, that the port's been congested, they've been waiting, and they've been diverted to go somewhere else, and you've got to explain to someone that their shipment's going to be 3-4 weeks delayed because the boat couldn't have docked and it's gone somewhere else, and we've got to wait for it to come back again. I think I've seen in your profile before, and people not understanding the reason behind that, and why previously in the past couple months it might have taken 4 weeks, and now why it's taken, I don't know the exact timeframes, but more than that, and just trying to explain the issues, why that's happening and behind, just to make people understand rather than it just being a westbound issue.
Yeah, that's a real tough time that we're having, because you've got, we've been doing this for years and years, so the process doesn't really change at all. It's just a different client base. So we've got blue chip high street retailers using us for years, moving in hundreds of containers a week, and if we tell them the news that this vessel's been diverted to Rotterdam, their reaction is very different. It's really, geez, that's crap news. That's such an inconvenience. We're going to lose supply chain time. We're going to lose this, but they know it's not our fault.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a little bit easier to deal with that. And the bad news is still bad news, but at least they can start planning on what they're going to do differently. Yeah. But what we're finding now is our Amazon, a lot of our Amazon customers that sell on Amazon are still quite new to it, and they wouldn't know. Yeah. Why would they? Because this is probably never happened to them. So when we make the call or the email to say we've just found out this vessel's going to be delayed for 2 weeks, the immediate reaction is anger, disappointment, and it's often us or even other forwarders that get the brunt of that, because it's it's trying to get your head around of, well, why didn't you tell me before? Because we didn't know.
Yeah, no,
why didn't you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure, especially just trying to put yourselves in their shoes, like you said, a lot of the people starting Amazon and a lot of the people you probably work with are these first-time sellers, first-time buyer from China. They're new to everything, and even if everything goes smoothly, their heart is just like pounding for the whole thing, because they've never done this before. It's a very scary experience as it is, without them being told that things are delayed and there's issues. You can see why these people are frustrated, and you can see why there are so many issues coming up with the people complaining to Westbound, and you do 100% sympathize with that. But directing the anger towards Westbound, it's not going to help anyone, because again, it's not particularly your fault or anyone's fault. It's just the industry in general. It's just what's happening right now. There's nothing no one can do about it.
No, that's right. It is it is a compounded problem throughout the whole industry. So it's not even just Westbound. It is everyone. It's whoever you're dealing with. Whether you're working with us, great if you are. But if you're not, I'd even stick up for our rivals here and say go easy on them too, because it really is out of our control. But I get it. We do understand, because if you've committed your savings or your investment, whether it's the first time or the 10th time or the 20th, it's nerve-wracking, to have your money sitting on the water and desperately waiting for it to get here, so that you can upload it to your inventory, and you wait for that first sale to come in, and you get your heart set on that. And if that's not going to happen for another 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's utter disappointment.
It's a stark contrast to what I normally tell people, where normally when I explain the process, and a lot of people often get worried about the shipping process and shipping from China to the UK, and they see that as one of the most scariest areas of selling on Amazon. And normally what I say about the process is actually one of the easiest, especially, I don't want to try and big up Westbound too much, but especially with Westbound, they're the only ones I've had experience with, like yourselves. It's normally the easiest process out of all of it. It's much easier than finding a product or trying to advertise the product, because very simply, you literally give Westbound the information, you give them where to collect, and then within 3-4 weeks it's all done for you. You basically have to do hardly anything for that whole stage. So it's a stark contrast to that normally being the most simple and stress-free kind of area selling on Amazon to now becoming just a bit more of an issue. Again, no fault of yourselves, just an industry problem that is making an easy step much harder than it generally has to be. But I will steer us back onto these questions here because we are stuck on that one for quite a while. So is there, I'm sure you don't have a straight answer for this question, but it is a question that someone wanted to know. So is there an estimated time frame for how long shipments are generally delayed, or anything you would say kind of about that?
Yes, it is a good question, and it's a valid one, because we sent out newsletters about 2 months ago, starting to predict that this was going to happen. We could see it coming, so we started to say, build in at least 2 weeks to your lead time. So try and order earlier, and work with your factory now to bring forward your production, and have a worst case scenario that you're going to have a 2-week delay, because that's when we were seeing almost 100% guarantee that every container was probably going to be rolled, and rolling in our world means that it's booked, it's scheduled to go on that vessel, but it rolls on to the next week.
Yeah.
It stays at the port for an extra week. But now we've got so many different hurdles to overcome, and chances of delays. It's more like a 3 to 4 week on average, but we have had some really unlucky instances where it's gone up to 6 weeks, and that's where we had a container roll at the origin, so it didn't leave on the week it should have done. Most aren't, so that's your first week delayed. The vessel is then due to arrive, and due to berth congestion at Felixstowe or Southampton now is equally as bad. That's another week. They then cut and run, which is basically where they give up and say, right, we've got to bring up the anchor, forget waiting here, we're going to go to Antwerp or Rotterdam. And that's another 2 or 3 weeks by the time they finish going up the coast of Europe to Hamburg and back again. So it's a terrible delay, but problem after problem. I would kind of average around 4 weeks as a worst case at the moment.
So that's kind of your recommendation, then, that if they're generally going to order in 4 weeks' time, place that order now, because you think that delay will make it all work out smoothly as it normally would. So you can kind of work the situation not to your advantage, but you can work around it and plan ahead if you have that foresight to know the kind of delays you could be expecting.
100%, yeah. I mean, if I was in your shoes and the seller's shoes, I would be buying a little bit earlier. Try and plan to see when your inventory is going low, and instead of just tying it in exactly neatly so that you've got money coming in, money going out. If you can afford to do it, just try and get those orders in earlier so that you've got stock arriving before your inventory sells, and you're not going to be so hampered with bad news of delays.
Yeah. Well, I'll have a check after this call. Then your team might be expecting a message from me later today, based on those numbers. So, the next question is, again, maybe not one you can answer like specifically because there is big fluctuations, but on average, in terms of prices, what kind of increases have you seen just among, I guess as an industry average, how much have prices increased, say, since March? Has it been like a gradual increase? Has there been kind of plateaus? Just anything, your thoughts on the pricing of freight forwarding at the minute?
Oh, crazy. We've seen, if we look at a 40-foot high cube as the benchmark to measure, that's increased by about $5,500 since March alone. Right. So bearing in mind what that means to people that haven't had the experience of, throughout a whole year of seeing the peaks and troughs yet, or for those that haven't been in this for 2 or 3 years. The highest we've seen a rate on a 40-foot high cube in the last, let's go 7 years, was $2,800, but the average is normally around $1,800 for the year.
Right.
We're now looking at above 7,000 for a 40-foot high cube. So the increase alone is double from what we've seen as a general rate in the last 7 years anyway. So it's just, how anyone could have ever predicted that, I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think that actually moves on quite nicely to my next question, or the question I'd like to ask myself. So, when do you think? In fact, I'll scrap this question and ask it in a different way. In terms, you say the prices increased that much. Obviously, that's going to affect sellers.
Hold on. Do I need to get a crystal ball? So
I'll try and make the question as tame as possible for you. Because obviously these prices are like so high at the minute, and that's going to affect sellers' margins and their profit significantly, with that being so much more than what it was even like a year ago. What would you say with people like trying to plan ahead with those profit margins? Do you see those prices continue to going up or going down? Like if someone had the thought now that if I order now, I might well lose money or make a significant amount less profit on this shipment. Is it worth waiting for prices to come down, or is this just going to continue and I should just bite the bullet and order now and just try and get through because everyone's in the same boat?
Yeah, no pun intended, but everyone is in the same boat, literally. So I think if I was a seller, knowing what I know on this side of the fence and crossing over to where you guys are, I'd make the calculations to see whether I can make money and not really worry about the margin. As long as I'm making money, I wouldn't put it off, because if you can do it now, you'll be so glad for how it will end up turning, and it will reduce. So that margin will become bigger. Obviously, different products are going to have different margins, and you feel that you're just not going to be competitive paying the prices that it costs to import right now. If that's the case, then again, don't panic, because if you concentrate your time and somewhere else into learning and you're planning on how that's going to look for the next year, continue to do that. But I think the rates are going to be here for at least January, possibly worse. Still, just because purely Chinese New Year, there's a huge surge before Chinese New Year, because every Chinese factory want their premises empty. All the staff go away back to villages for often once a year. It is a huge logistical challenge prior to Chinese New Year anyway. But add a pandemic into the mix, this is probably going to be the most horrendous pre-Chinese New Year we've ever seen. Usually what we see is a price crash after Chinese New Year, because there's no vessels leaving for a week. Well, there is, but it's only from what is already left loaded on the quay, ready to go. But it's that 1 or 2 weeks when the factories return, the volume, most factories take 30 days lead time to produce products. So
it would take a while for factories to get food back up again, start actually producing products, and then you obviously have that lead time for things starting to ship. So you do have that kind of downtime after Chinese New Year before things start actually getting into the flow again.
So I think we're going to see not the usual crash, but I think we're going to see a mini crash. I could see quite a good significant saving from where we are today. Hazarding a guess, if I had to estimate, I'd say instead of 7,000, we might be looking at 4,500, 5,000. So I really hope for less, because it's only going to build back up again, and it's not sustainable having it at the current levels. It's not helping importers, because before soon we're going to pay that price as consumers. No,
definitely. The price is always going to be passed on, and I'm sure that's what sellers will be thinking of doing now. That again, because everyone is in the same boat, every person selling on Amazon mostly is going to be imported from China. They're all going to have these price increases in shipping. You'd think as an industry, as 10 sellers selling the same product, if everyone increases their prices, that will just become the new norm, and it will be passed on to us, the consumers, for products we buy.
Well, in the wholesale sector, so where a lot of our customers are buying in bulk and wholesaling to, and this is outside of Amazon. This is just retail customers. They've already started. So, for instance, when currency changes dramatically without much warning, so if the pound drops huge, what we will see is a currency surcharge added onto prices as an emergency. So we're now seeing some of our customers that buy, as an example, furniture. So a lot of furniture comes from China and Vietnam.
Yeah.
Some of those customers are now applying a freight surcharge as a percentage onto their customer. So they're saying we can't. You either pay it or you don't get the goods.
Yeah.
So it is being charged and paid. So I do think you're right. I think we if it doesn't settle down soon or immediately after Chinese New Year, there is going to be perhaps a surcharge passed on until it reaches the consumer, and prices are going to be more expensive.
Yeah. So just to kind of summarize that question, then we're thinking, obviously, there's no way to actually know, but at least until January, and then hopefully in February on the Chinese New Year, we'll have a slight dip.
Yeah.
Still not to levels before COVID, but still a dip at that. And then do you maybe predict for the rest of 2021 we'll stay at that kind of dip level after Chinese New Year, or will continue to go down, or just I know obviously it's a very hard question to know, but I'm sure some people are really interested in is these shipping rates and how they're going to change in 2021, and just over time, what can people be expecting?
Yeah, I think we will 100% see a dip in from February onwards,
Right.
and it will take a couple of months to start to climb up again.
Okay.
I don't think it will get back to the levels that we are today at 7,000 plus for a 40 foot.
Okay.
It just, I hope not.
Yeah.
So I think we are going into a new era where the average of a 40 foot is it's going to be years until we see that sort of average of $1,800 again. I think it's going to be between 3.5 and 5 somewhere, and that's crazy because that gap alone was the old price itself, and that used to fluctuate. So it is quite crazy what we're discussing. But yeah, I think February, quite a big dip, and then that's going to slowly build up again and fall in line with the old peaks and troughs. You know, your pre-Christmas boom, your pre-summer boom with a lot of garden furniture comes in and pushes the price up.
So I think one thing that may be important to say here is that obviously we're talking about like some big numbers for a full container, but most of the people who are going to be doing these first shipments, they're not going to be doing a full container load. Their shipments are generally going to be around the 350 pound mark as kind of a minimum. So in terms of that, if that shipment was say 300 pounds before COVID, what kind of percentage increase could you see on that now? Because I think, it's like I said, a lot of people watching this won't be shipping full containers, and it sounds like thousands of pounds more, but to their shipments, which are much smaller, it might not be that much of it won't be thousands and thousands increase like we're talking about here. So what kind of increase would you see on that, a smaller shipment, without obviously specific details on the size and weight of that shipment?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's still relative. As I'm guessing why you asked that, because it's important to understand it. Even if you're not moving a full container, you're paying for a proportion of space that's on that container. So otherwise known as LCL, less than container loads. That price has gone up by, I think it's about £45 a cubic meter.
Right.
Already since we saw these prices start to increase back in more like April, May.
Yeah.
So yeah, the price hasn't gone up thousands for your per cubic meter of freight when you're booking LCL, but it's certainly gone up relevant because if you times that by 60 to 65 cubic meters, which is what you get in a 40 foot high cube, there's your difference. It's about 45, and it's there's talk of it going up again by another £20. So we could be looking at £65 a cube from mid-December onwards.
Yeah, that metric that you've given, the £45 per cubic meter, at least that will allow people to kind of know what their shipment is in terms of cubic meters, or look at their last shipment, and they'll then be able to calculate how much more than they can expect to pay. So they have a figure in mind before they contact Westbound, because I think getting that message through of the price compared to what they paid previously, or what they might have a number in mind of, it can be quite a shock. But if they've already prepared themselves for what it could be, and they know what it is before they contact you, hopefully that will kind of ease the brunt of seeing that price and that gasp of like how much it might be. So hopefully that will ease that issue for some sellers.
Yeah, what I will say, just on there, maybe on this post when the video goes out, if I can share a specific link for Amazon sellers to sign up to a specific newsletter that we issue. That would really help. It doesn't matter whether you're not using us or not. If you find it helpful, great, because the more education that we get out there, the better it is. So what I would say, sign up to that and ensure that you keep on top of the news. It's there to help you. It will give you a heads up of what's happening, what we're predicting, a few tips of what to do when planning your buying from China.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll put that in the group post, the comment in the description. That will definitely go along with this video because I'm sure it'll help a lot of people. So that's most of the questions that people had to ask. That's been asked. I think the last one here is basically one from me, just to again kind of explain your side of things. That what kind of steps is Westbound taking during this time to try and like get through it, and I guess just what changes have been made since March in the way that you do things.
A lot more communication, and it is hard to keep on top of that, but it's communication. I mean, our newsletter. I'll start that again. Put my teeth in. Our newsletters and articles have probably trebled to what we normally do. So we're quite conscious of boring people. We don't want to bore people and say, "Oh, another Westbound newsletter." But if you don't want to read it, don't. But it's there. You know, you can get them all on our website to understand what's going on. We're changing our email signatures for to try and highlight the article of the day or the most pressing news, to with a big finger literally pointing to, please read this. We're talking to more customers. We're changing the way we book as well. So, you know, going back to the full load as an example, where the rates have now not been issued, we're doing spot quotations. How we're helping some people is just to explain about the shortage of container equipment and how quick we have to be, and there's a time difference as well. You know, we're 2 o'clock in the morning, China are already an hour into their day trying to find us space on board a vessel and actually get an empty container to load. So what we're doing for some customers that agree with it is say, give us a ceiling of where you cannot go beyond. If you want us to book that container and we're in communication with your factory, tell us where you can't go beyond and we won't book it. If it's anything below that, we will. And those that are entrusting us to do that, because that almost seems, I know how it sounds, it's almost like, well, I'm giving you a blank check.
Giving control away.
And that's a leap of faith. But those that have done that, we've actually said, well, actually, you know, that one there that you said get it away for $7,000 and no more, we've got it away for 5,800. So we've had some big wins because we've managed to say, don't check with us, just get that container. One becomes empty. You know, an import load comes into Shanghai, unloads, that empty returns. You've got to be quick. You've really got to be quick to get that empty.
Part of it is the speed to literally just pounce on it as soon as it's available. That's what's going to win it, I guess. So with that bit covered, I think that's all the questions that everyone had for you in Westbound. The last thing is just I might want any other prayer. So yeah, just the last thing here is just any recommendations you'd have for people in the next, I guess, few months, the next year. Any recommendations you could throw about shipping, about how the industry is going, about how to handle things, deal with things, just any final thoughts in this conversation, anything you want to reiterate more just for the next couple of minutes, just anything like that you want to spit out at us, go for it.
A couple of things. Obviously, the problems we're going through at the moment, that's all about understanding and education. Whoever you're using, I would say, please just get up to speed with what's going and why we're in this sorry state. It's all because of COVID-19. I'm not a fan of people using that as an excuse, but in this occasion, it actually is. It really is affecting a lot of people. There's not enough staff at the ports. There's a lot more measures for safety in different regions of the world that are all affected. The container ships are taking double to 3 times the amount of time to offload. That all these knock-on effects are having such a big impact with lead times. When there is delays, we don't know until it happens. So we can't even give you a pre-warning that one's going to be delayed for another 2 weeks. We don't know and nor does the shipping line until they actually get to the port and they're told that they can't unload. So it's just, it would help to have a little bit more understanding and sympathy of what's going on in the industry. Everyone's working together. We're all businesses. We're all trying to survive. So try not to take out your disappointment and your anger on the person at the end of the phone or an email. General advice that the repeat kind of situation that I see that comes up a lot is when people are starting out, of where the kind of break point is for efficiency. So our old minimum shipment was 300, it's now 350 and possibly going up to 375. But let's just talk about pre-COVID times. £300 would get you 3 cubic meters FOB any main port in China to door. We see people come on and say, can I have a price for 0.8 cubic meters? You can. It's probably going to be cheaper to do it sea freight than air freight. It's probably just about in the realms of okay, send it sea freight. But that 0.8 cube, you could literally times that by 3 and still pay exactly the same to us for shipping. So that's a real good pointer to highlight, because some people have come on and said, oh no, that's expensive for 0.8 of a cubic meter. But what we'd really like to highlight is, if it earns you money, don't push yourself and say, well, I'm going to triple up my order and risk everything you've got and get triple the amount that you was prepared to buy in the first place. But at least understand that, make money on your 0.8 cube of goods that you're buying, but kind of enjoy the fact that later on, if that works, you can double up, scale up and triple up again and still pay the same freight amount to that optimal amount. So that's one bit of advice that I'd give, is to, if you're ready to book 3 cube and above, that's the optimum where you're going to save money on freight. But below that, if it works, it works, but don't panic, because your profit margin will increase.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a lot of posts in the group about people wanting to ship smaller boxes. You actually recommended to them to either use a supplier service, use an air shipment, because it will just be cheaper and it's a better option for them for those smaller shipments.
We'd always give that advice, to, even if it doesn't mean you're not going to use us. If it falls into an amount where actually you're going to be better off paying an air freight courier, just get your supplier to book that. So we'd always be honest. Yeah,
and again, I've seen you do that multiple times, actually turning people away and giving them a better deal with someone else. So that's always great to see. Now, off of like COVID and things like that, there's actually one thing I do want to talk about quickly, because over the years of us being in the group together, we've explained this multiple times. I thought, literally just sort of now, why not explain it on video, about DDP and DDU versus FOB? Because I know this is something we've talked about so much in the group and talking to people about the difference between them. So is that something you'd want to talk about quickly and just explain why you would go for one over the other, the difference between them and your opinion on both of them? Because again, we've written about this so much over the past couple of years. It'd be good just to get it on video, just to, I can cut this into a little clip itself and send this to people just to explain it easier. But I'll let you take the stage. This one.
Okay. It can be confusing, because there's a tiny little conflict on that. So if you're sending parcels, then DDP.
Yeah.
And that's the only time I'll ever say it. Yeah. So DDP, delivered duty paid. The price you're paying for your smaller, whether it's samples or just a small size item, and it comes in a 3 or 4 parcel sizes, you're going to get it quicker because it's going air freight on a courier service like a FedEx or a UPS. So do that, get it quicker, save a bit of money, but that price per kilo stays the same the larger the consignment goes. So there becomes a point where that becomes far too expensive, and that's when you want to move to FOB, free on board.
Yeah.
So your shipping is free until it gets on board.
Yeah. So basically, the supplier would deliver it to the port completely for free, at which point you take control of that shipment. It's your responsibility, or I guess the seller's responsibility, the buyer's responsibility, sorry. And yeah, you take control of that shipment out of the port.
Yeah, well, even the terms are a misconception, because people often make the mistake of believing that we don't pick it up.
Yeah.
That the supplier delivers it in. That's not always the case. Actually, 99% of the time, we still pick it up from the factory. So the terms simply spell out who's paying for what segment of the freight.
Yeah.
So Ryan, if you booked FOB with me,
yeah.
we would speak to your supplier in China and say, we've got Ryan Williams shipment, it's FOB Ningbo, would you like us to come and pick it up? They'll say yes, we give them a price, and it just means that we charge them in China for the export leg to get it to port.
Yeah.
But because they are paying for it, they have got the right to do it themselves, and sometimes that does happen.
Yeah.
They might have their own trucks, and they'll say, no, that's fine, we'll send it, where do you want it, and we'll take it to our port warehouse where we load it.
Yeah.
But FOB is always going to be cheaper than Ex Works because of that fact that you'd always have a supplier that will do it a little bit cheaper than what we would bill them for.
Yeah.
Or if it was Ex Works, what we would bill you for. They've got their own trucks. More often than not, they'll probably subsidize it. So even if we're going to charge them to pick it up and arrange the export, they would actually subsidize it, just to give you a flat rate and say, right, I'm sure it's going to be within that amount of the Ex Works charges. We'll just give you a rate and run with it on FOB.
Just to jump in there,
FOB is safer as well.
EXW, people will normally know it by the abbreviation, probably not Ex Works. So Ex Works, when you say that, you mean
right.
EXW.
Yeah, EXW. So that's going to be your most expensive method. So avoid that. That's only ever used for air freight. So when we're talking about sea freight, always start day one your negotiations as FOB. That helps you control your freight, your planning and your costs much better. Even if they increase it by 50 cents an item or $1, it's all relevant, because if it was EXW, we would probably be charging you $1 extra plus. So it's going to be cheaper buying FOB and then pay us for just the port onwards to the door. You can also plan. You can have your calculations to know that you don't have to get a spot quotation from us on every single shipment. You know your buying cost and you know your freight cost. So we can just set you up on a tariff rather than you ever having to email us. That's a huge benefit. It's also much less riskier.
Yeah.
And this is
what I wanted to go on to is the risk levels.
Yeah, it's not just about the financials. So this is we actually have a diagram that explains this, but we've changed the words that many other people use. They say it transfers risk. Well, it's not risk, it's responsibility.
Yeah.
And if you give the entire process, that the entire responsibility to your factory, not just to make the goods, what they're good at, but then to give the shipping to them, they're going to subcontract it to somebody else local in China. I'll guarantee now that 99% of Chinese forwarders don't have their own service. They're an agent or a partner of a destination freight forwarder who does control the service.
And I know that's
they might
about the specific FBA forwards here in the UK, about, not to mention any names, but people who we've seen advertising before for trying to ship with FBA, and you saying they don't own their own shipments, they don't just own their own containers basically, and they just subcontract it to someone like you, like Westbound, and just putting their margin on top of it.
Yeah, which there's British companies that do that. There's as well as Chinese, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a good relationship with that person and they're quite open about it and say, look, it's not our service, we're going to subcontract it out, but we're going to look after you and keep up the communication. Fine, whatever works for you. You'll be paying more, but if that works for you, then great. But if you use the supplier, you lose that transparency, because they've subbed it out. The company that they've subbed it to are probably going to re-subcontract it out again. The end user trying to say, where's my shipment? It's going to take a hell of a lot longer. There'll be no online tracking. There'll be no customer service, because you've got to go back to China to ask where your shipment is. And then once you do talk to the UK agent, that the freight agent that has your goods on arrival, they don't really care about you, because you're not the customer. You haven't paid the bill.
I see that, yeah.
And if there is going to be a delay, which in today's times there most likely is, you're not going to be told at the earliest opportunity. You're just a number on a file, on a manifest that says you've got a shipment on there. So there is no real care that a customer and a supplier, that a partnership should have. But also going back to, if we can compare that to DDP quickly, or CIF, which is cost, insurance, and freight. So either way, you should be having your goods insured. The biggest risk is paying for the privilege to have your goods shipped and insured, and then really finding out in a disastrous situation where we've just seen from China to Long Beach, actually, a vessel the ONE Apus had 1,900 containers fall off the side of the vessel.
I've seen that picture on your profile. You posted it.
So,
the comments to that picture as well, saying a lot of people had a lot of money traveling at that time, and it must be extremely worrying to see that kind of thing does happen.
Yeah, well, if you've entrusted your supplier to pay the insurance, I'm sorry to say, but I don't think a lot of Chinese factories would actually take your money that you've paid and pay it out to an insurance company. They'll take the risk.
Yeah.
So you're then not sleeping at night wondering whether your goods are actually insured.
Yeah.
So we would say buy FOB, stay in control of your own valuable goods, your own livelihood. You insure it. You speak to your partnership, who's a freight forwarder, to understand where your goods are, and you benefit from the savings, because the prices do fluctuate throughout the year. And if you're locked into a DDB price, you're never going to reap the benefits of a saving, whereas with a forwarder, you will.
And just to touch on the insurance side, then, when you say insurance for like shipping from China to UK, of the amount of kind of money some people are shipping, it might seem like it'd be very expensive, but in terms of actually insurance, from what I've experienced, it isn't actually that much compared to the amount of money you're actually importing.
No, it's not. I mean, I certainly wouldn't ship anything without insuring it.
No,
100%. It's just not worth.
And
not worth the risk.
Westbound do the insurance themselves. You don't have to go find an insurer. You can literally just ask Westbound to do that on your behalf.
Yeah, we actually say, it's not really a revenue stream for us. It's not a benefit in that way. It's a benefit to safe in the knowledge, have our customers insured, because in the event of an accident, whether there's damage, pilferage, vessel sinking, it's just a hell of a lot easier for everyone all round, not to have that loggerhead situation where you're saying, well, what's your terms and conditions? You haven't completed the job, and we're explaining ourselves that, well, we don't, we can't control a ship sinking, and the terms and conditions pay out very, very little.
Yeah.
And this is why we say take out insurance. It's there for a reason. So that's a horrible situation to be in for us when we're working with a good customer, yet they've made a poor decision and not insured their goods, and then we end up falling out because someone misunderstands that we should be liable for it, and we're not. I'm telling everyone that's listening now, no freight forwarder is liable for your goods if the boat sinks. So insure your goods. It's like £35 will cover you up to £4,000 value. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, 100%.
Someone else said recently on one of the comments, which I like, a guy called Adam. He said, "It's expensive to be cheap."
I seen you. I think I seen you laugh at that comment. It's a very good saying. I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I said I'd use that, and I just have.
I hope he watches this and comments down below about that. So yeah, basically what we're saying then is, if it's a very small shipment, less than 0.3 meters cubed, I think you said, then shipping the supplier, using the supplier service is completely fine. And then anything over that, you would move more towards FOB and that side of things. Is that the right kind of summary of that?
Yeah, or you could even do it on cost, I suppose. I mean, if your supplier is gonna charge you anything more than £350, then look at sea freight. But if it's around about that, then it must be a size that makes it right for courier, as long as they are sending it by courier.
So if it's by courier, then it is safe to use a supplier. The risks we just talked about don't really play into the matter so much. If it isn't by courier and it is by freight with your supplier, then those risks come into play. So that's something you want to understand about your shipment: is how big is it? How is the supplier shipping it? If they were going to ship it, what kind of FOB price should you get? you want to just weigh up all these options and understand just kind of all your options in front of you before making a decision on how you're going to ship your goods. Don't just go with the supplier pushes on you, because in general, from what I've seen, the supplier most of the time is going to try and push the DDP, DDU, those kind of shipments on you over FOB, because I'm probably, as you said, they subcontract that, and they probably make a bit more money themselves by doing it that way. So it's better for you just to get all the quotes,
Yeah.
think about it yourself, and make that decision, and not let the supplier make it for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the biggest trap is the one that we haven't covered, is CIF or C and F terms, which is where your supplier will pay to get it up to port only. Avoid that like a pandemic. that means that they would actually pay zero, believe it or not, or even worse, they would actually get a rebate.
Right.
So it's one of the biggest, I say scam, it's not really a scam. It's just the most backward thing ever. So if you pay extra to have your supplier ship on CIF terms, and then you think, oh, that's good, they're going to get it, 90% of the way to Felixstowe, it can't cost that much just to get it from the port. Well, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because they would have actually paid zero to get it to the port. Worse still, they would have been paid $300 to get it to the port. And that $300 or zero charge revenue gets switched to what's called local charges. So you've paid the supplier to falsely get it there.
Yeah.
You're then going to pay a UK freight agent 3-4 times the amount to get it out of the port. So you're going to get stung. That's where we actually get quite a lot of our customers, where people come off of the back of being stung, and we explain to them how they're falling into that trap.
Yeah.
And we help fix it from there on. But our advice would be don't fall into that trap in the first place.
I think obviously we're really going into this topic a lot more than I thought we would, but that's another issue that I see with the DDP, DDU.
I told you to stop me if it gets boring.
I hope people enjoy. I hope we have actually got some watchers that have gone this far into the video, and it's not just us. But a lot of times with those kind of shipments with the DDP, DDU, it's like you said about the charges when it gets to the UK. On the face of it, they might say that it's going to cost this much extra, but then when it gets to the UK, I've seen you mention before, there are hidden charges that sometimes will come up the supplier didn't mention. They then make that shipment more expensive than it would have been to ship FOB in the first place. So those are things to be aware of as well, is just understand about, I guess, is there any hidden charges specifically you would mention to look out for that normally come up or anything like
that? Not unless you're using those terms. So the hidden charges always came about if you've used the supplier to ship.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you really need to look at your invoices when you get them from the arrival freight forwarder that's going to look after or hand over and arrange delivery, customs clearance for you. You've really got to look at the charges that you get from them, because that's where you get the hidden charges.
Yeah, and I'm sure Westbound will always be happy to give another quote or an alternative opinion on anything. If anyone's unsure or anything, just to at least just get a second opinion on anything to help them buy.
Yeah, we're always happy to help, and we're always trying to pitch in without coming across too much of an advertisement, because I'm conscious that the more you try and correct people or tell people this is how it should be done, when it's me saying it, it can often come across as a bit of an advert of Westbound. But what would be nice for other people to share their experience where they have actually been caught out and paid these hidden charges, because I know there's so many in the group already. It would be really great for you to kind of back this up.
Yeah, no, 100%. Over the past couple of years of us working together in the group, there's been so many people who've had issue of DDP said that they've had these hidden charges, their shipment's been lost, the issues that have been mounting out. I did a video on it a while ago. There's been so many more people have that issue since then, and see you come in the comments and trying to explain it. And I think what makes it more sincere is the fact that when you explain something or when you're in the comments, it's never just you. If someone asks for a freight forwarder and you post your service, the comments underneath are Ryan Clark, Westbound Logistics, Westbound Logistics, Ryan Clark. So it's not just you posting your service like so many people do. They just like to post a link and just chuck links around. The fact that multiple other people from the group post your name in there just adds just kind of so much solidarity to your name, and just kind of cements it as the name for FBA forwarding, really.
Yeah, no, it is nice to see. it's obviously disappointing when I know there's also a couple that haven't been pleased, and
Yeah, no, definitely
that's
things as well, 100%.
yeah, that's kind of going back on what we've touched upon about education. We sometimes find it hard that, well, that's not actually our fault. That's not our fault. We don't really want to be saying it's not our fault all the time, because it sounds like we're pushing blame. But some people, unfortunately, we just haven't been able to get that message across. And it's sad to see a customer go away and think, oh, I'm not using that Westbound again. They're rubbish. They delayed my shipment for 4 weeks.
I know for anyone watching this, I'd 100% recommend to going to Ryan's profile and looking at the posts you do, because you post a lot of kind of. I've seen someone actually quite recently that you should be a writer for Netflix or something, because the stories you post on your profile, they are actually like full on like written stories, situations, and you must take so long to write and actually get all the correct information. But if you go to Ryan's page and look at his profile, you often post situations that arise, how you've dealt with that situation, issues you've had, the responsibility you've had to take, even if it wasn't really your responsibility to take in the first place, how that situation evolved. It's very interesting seeing us, and I always read your posts, and I do enjoy kind of looking at the situations people have had. And it's like you said, not everyone has a positive experience, but as much as you don't want to kind of pass the blame for that, a lot of the situations, especially recently, aren't particularly Westbound's fault. It is just delays or prices that are causing most of the issues, which we've touched upon already about why that's happening.
Yeah, I do that for a couple of reasons. That's the first one is kind of just making sure that I'm sane and the way I see it. So I'm quite open to put these out there to say, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Do you think we've handled this right? You know, this is what's happened, and this is how we've dealt with it. We've gone over and above where we should, I feel. And how would you feel if you was the customer? So it's nice to get the perception openly. But the second reason we do it is education.
Yeah.
Because if some customers or first time importers predominantly are being upset at a certain scenario, and we then get to the point where we've learned from it, or they've learned from it, and we've helped them learn from it, well, why not share it? Because if it helps someone falling into that same scenario, then it's a double win. I can kind of take a real negative situation there, and in my head I'm kind of ticking it off to think, okay, that was bad, but hopefully out there, whoever's reading this, I might have helped another 10 people.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah, 100%. So I think we'll probably try and round it up there, because I don't know how long this has been on for now, but it's definitely been a good amount of time. So if you just want to, I don't know, just give, just a final end of about how to contact you, and if anyone wants any help, just the best email to use, best way to contact Westbound Logistics.
Yeah, good point, because that does help. I get a lot of messages on Facebook sometimes, and that's not always the best way to contact me, because if I'm not friends with you, it will go into that to be checked folder, and then I won't see it for another week. We've got a dedicated email where I get them, and so does our team. So if I'm never not around, it's not generally me that will come back to you first time anyway. I'm there lurking in the background. So send an email to me and the team on Amazon at westboundglobal.com. Yeah. That's the best way to get us. And more so, it's more professional. We can help you more.
Yeah.
We can send back attachments and forms to fill in. You know, one of the questions we get is, what do I need to tell you to get a price? Yeah. Straight away on email is so much better, because we can send back a form to say, here you go. This is specific to you being an Amazon FBA seller. Fill this in, send it back, and we're good to go.
Fantastic. So I'll put that email in the post and the comment description, everything like that. But I think that basically rounds us up. So thanks for joining me for the video. It's been I think hopefully very insightful, and there'll be a lot of information here that will help people, especially in the next coming months with the price increase and delays, to just give them a bit more information and context as to why this has happened, and that it is an industry-wide thing. It's not a particular problem to Westbound Logistics.
No, it's thanks for having me on. It's been great to get the message out there, and hopefully people understand a little bit more about what's going on and why. And one last thing to say is just hang in there. Tough times.
Yeah, well, tough times for everyone. So it's not just the importing industry. There's so many people have been affected, and industry's been affected. So at least you know you're not alone. It is everyone's been affected in one way or another by this. So it's just one of those things that everyone's got to get through together, I guess.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. It'll be a year to forget, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for joining, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, pleasure.
Fantastic. Now, I hope you enjoyed that little interview between myself and Ryan Clark with everybody. If you want more videos like this with interviews with people like accountants, freight forwarders, maybe something about Brexit and all those type of things, then let me know in the comment section below so I know if there's some interest around that video. But with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, with Ryan Clark, the co-owner of Westbound Logistics. Again, if you want to contact them at any point, it's amazon@westboundglobal.com. Again, I'll have their contact details in the title description, along with the newsletter or any other information we shared in that little kind of interview podcast thing there. So, without any further ado, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.